Warning, this podcast may contain bad language and content that some listeners may find offensive. And the good thing about this is it probably will contain bad language.
And offensive content.
Hopefully. You know what it means?
Yep.
I can finally say without it being bleeped.
Yep. Welcome to Seesaw Podcast.
With your hosts, T, Cleaves and Selina.
Every week, bringing some much-needed balance and humour to brighten up what can sometimes be a dark, disabled world.
And I will throw the other disclaimer in here. We are using these terms today as context for anything we're going to be talking about. These aren't said in malice. They are not said outside of that context. So if you have a problem with it, frankly, find something better to do with your fucking life. That this is contextual, and we're talking about this as what it is.
Okay.
I think that's concise and a bit harsh, but
It was a little bit.
I know what the comments are going to be. Like, oh, you said this. It's like, just get on your bike, mate.
Like, people can't really ride bikes very well without someone else. Anyway, you going to open the show?
Get on your tandem, mate.
It doesn't have the same ring, does it?
It does not, but I like it. Hello, one and all. Konnichiwa. Welcome to Seesaw Podcast. So this week's episode, we're getting a little bit more classic. There's no series or anything like that we're doing this time. This is all based off of a Facebook post from the Royal National Institute from the Blind, for the Blind, the RNIB. And Selina, you put this on our radar. And
here we go again.
So this Facebook post, the question posed was, what problematic language used by the media do people not like? And what do they, well, essentially, what do we wish the media would stop using as descriptors and terminology for the visually impaired and blind community? So for this, we have pulled some choice comments from this, but we will give our own perspectives.
Do you want me to start?
Yes.
Right, this comment comes from Phil Donger69.
He's back.
He says, weirdly, Dear Seesaw Podcast, I'm sorry to post this on the RNIB thread. The term that I hate the most is when people use the phrase in the media, suffering from, as if blind people are suffering. We're not suffering. We're just different. It's society's problem, not mine.
Well, good to hear from Phil. I think it's been
a while.
90 episodes.
Good guy. Not a big fan of yours, but he's all right.
I am fully aware of Phil's opinions on me. So, suffering from, is there any thoughts on this terminology before I throw my hat in the ring?
Oh, no more hats. Have you got a hat on today?
Too late, I'm going to put the jingle in. Even I'm wearing a hat today indoors.
Oh, what's going on?
Get yourself a hat.
Yeah.
Have you got any fancy pajamas on today? Pajamas all day. Pajamas all day.
Lilo and Stitch again.
Do you ever change?
I have limited winter pajamas. They do get washed.
It's not winter. Oh, it
is.
Yeah, it's spring and March, I guess. All right, fine. Well, I'm off topic already. Sorry, suffering from.
I think he had a fair point. I don't like suffering, although I do suffer from time to time. Well, quite a lot with eye pain.
You just don't like people to say you are.
No. Don't paint me in a bad light.
It might be true, but don't say it. Go on then, T.
I mean, I have no strong opinions either way on this, to be honest.
Good start.
I think suffering from, it does imply that everyone is, like, if you look at the conventional idea of suffering, like in pain, a lot of visually impaired and blind people don't. That's not to say that people don't suffer and don't have pain, and there is the emotional, mental, and other sort of anguish that goes into it. But it is kind of a generic term to imply that everyone is, by saying, they're suffering from a visual impairment. It implies they're suffering there, and it's not always the case. Like, whether it is through pain or anguish, or it is a very negative term.
It does get used a lot, suffering, especially like even like times when Paralympics is on. It's like, this person suffers from cerebral palsy. It's like, oh, you did not just say that like at the Paralympics when they're doing this amazing stuff. I think, you need to say living with is a better alternative.
Or just has this condition.
Fair.
Yeah.
We're not really suffering, are we? Like victims of the Holocaust suffered. Compared to that, we're doing all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to the next one. Special needs.
Who's this comment by?
This is by Jill Donger, 68.
That's blatantly fake.
The rest of the comment is it implies that exceptions have to be made on behalf of the individual, or we are getting some kind of favour or favourable treatment. Now, I don't understand this comment because the term special needs, and then to go on and say it implies that we get special treatment and stuff like that. And I think that they're detached completely. I don't think this person actually knows what they're talking about.
Go on.
Well, special needs it's an old school term for learning disabilities. And I think in this context, that's what a lot of people would perceive it for. And that's what the media will use it for. If it's to be construed as how they're saying, like if someone has special needs, like they need some things specially done for them, well, it's true with adaptations. I don't know how you change this. What, adaptive needs?
Additional needs, they say these days.
Additional needs. But is that not worse? Does that not apply that we need more than what is the standard? Where special needs sounds a bit, you're getting special treatment. I don't mind that because it has a little bit of a positivity. VIPs get special treatment.
But special needs kind of has that 90s kind of insulting quality about it. Not quality, you know what I mean?
Like connotation.
That's the word.
So, Selina, what do you think of special needs?
Well, my mum still uses special needs, and well, both my parents do actually, but not just describing my brother who does have a learning disability, like me as well. And I find it a bit cringy, like, if we're out and about, when we're trying to get the disability perks, and my dad would be like, I've got 2 kids here with special needs. And I feel like, oh,
lad.
I find it a little bit embarrassing, that terminology, but it kind of gets to the point. And I do have special needs. I do need special treatment. Again, it's just how you view it. If it is, it's personal, isn't it? If you see it as something negative or positive. And I like that, you said about VIPs have special treatment.
So, Cleaves, what's the next one?
This one is from a comment from a person, no further name, just says gem on it. They don't like the term the blind, as in the collective term.
What do you call a group of blind people then?
Blinkies.
Oh, I was going to say unemployed. Got to take some days.
I think that this is an absolutely fine descriptor. I can't see the context in which this would be.
Well, I'm going to tell you the context because I mentioned it off air and I'm probably going to commit suicide by doing this. But if someone referred to a group of black people as the blacks, that would not be acceptable, would it?
That's true, but we're not talking about race.
No, but that's a defining, feature of a person.
If you say the elderly.
Black. Yeah, you do say the elderly. Okay.
The children. The gays.
Again, you don't say that, do you, either? That's the thing.
I know people.
Point does it become acceptable?
I know people in the LGBT plus community who will use that terminology.
They're part of the community, aren't they?
They're allowed to say it because they're part of the community, but
people use the phrase "the disabled" as well, actually.
But then, how else would you describe that group of people? Well, I suppose going back to the blacks, I suppose you'd say the black community. You wouldn't just pluralize it.
That's true. You probably say that with the blind community, right?
Yeah. So is that okay to say the blind community, but not the blind? I don't know. I don't see a problem with it though.
I don't, but I can envision things in my head, like a website saying this product is bespoke, tailored for the blind.
Yeah, that kind of works in that context.
It does, but shouldn't it be?
Do you think maybe the problem is the S on the end? This one's for the blinds.
Yeah.
Is that worse? I would say that's worse. If we're using the black example as a comparison.
Yeah.
Don't pluralise.
For all the disableds out there, this one's for you.
But that's all right for you to say that because you're like part of that community. But I don't know. It's weird, isn't it?
So this is something that came up as a later comment, but it wasn't deemed good enough to be its own one. So I'm adding it to this as well. The blind implies that all of us have no sight. And that's something that someone got a little bit flustered about, a little bit aggy about.
Was it me? Because I get touchy about that.
Tell me more.
As a proper blind person.
Oh, come on.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, we've been faking it until we make it for time, T.
It does
Especially
drive me nuts. It's like, but blind people aren't really blind. Blind people have sight, and like RNIB have this big thing about, not all blind people are blind. Well, what? No, because they're partially sighted. I think it's fine for you to use it if you need it to get someone to understand quickly what your disability is. Fine, just say blind. That's what I do. But realistically,
you are proper blind by your own admission.
Yeah, but then I will use visually impaired because I think it's softer, nice. Generally, if I'm describing myself, I'll say I'm visually impaired. I won't say I'm blind because I feel I just don't want to be blind. That's just my own denial.
Yeah. I'm the opposite.
I get irritated when you can see people but can walk around without, needing to use any mobility aids or read stuff. And like, I'm blind. Like, no, you're not. You're partially sighted. And like, because I know when I was partially sighted, I wouldn't say I was blind.
If someone asks me, I normally say, or if I do something stupid, by stupid I mean, you know what I mean, a blind faux pas, if you will. if you're partly sighted, you know what one of those is. I tell people that I'm partly blind. Is that fine? I am partly blind, I guess. That's what I identify as.
Partly blind is such a weird thing as well to say, though. You're either blind or you're not. You're partially sighted. You're not partially blind, because blind is nothing, but you have some sight, so therefore you're partially sighted.
Well, the edge of my vision is near enough completely gone. Hence part. How'd you like that?
Yeah.
You're trying to say you got blind spots. Okay, fine.
And if I'm going to throw something in the ring here, I also don't think that the segmentation based on the amount of sight is a beneficial thing. Going back to cerebral palsy, which was an example we used earlier. Do you have fragmentation of cerebral palsy, or do they just say, I have cerebral palsy? And there are some people with CP who are a lot worse off than others. If someone has a very slight hearing impairment, are they not partly deaf?
Well, no, they're hearing impaired, the same as visually impaired. You use, that's the term to cover everyone, visually impaired, not blind.
Is it not better to use terms that the wider community of non-disabled individuals would understand in a quick and easier context? I use blind because I am registered blind.
No, you're not. Not anymore.
That's not a thing anymore.
Well,
yeah, that's probably
that's
why
another
it's not
thing.
a thing anymore. Yeah, that's probably why, because there was loads of people registered blind that weren't proper blind.
Proper blind.
I mean, I was one of them at that point, but
I just find it
severely sight impaired.
Yeah,
me too.
But that's such a mouthful, and it's so open to interpretation. I'd rather people thought the worst of me.
We do, don't worry.
But I'd rather use blind as a term so people will not ask any more questions, or there's more of an umbrella of understanding if I do something like, okay, that makes sense. Whereas it invites more questions if I give something that's on the spectrum.
Two things I want to pick up on. One, when you mentioned using terms that abled people would find easier to grasp in a quick situation, I'm on the fence of that's pretty good. But then secondly, I'm on the fence of why the fuck should we pander to these people? And then I don't know, in terms of like the partly blind part of things or the visually impaired things, I think visually impaired now it is a phrase that most people would get. I think that's quite widely used now. Maybe 10 years ago, people would be less knowledgeable about it, but I think now people would actually get it.
Okay. But that actually leads on to the next comment. One person said they hate the term visually impaired and prefer partially sighted.
That's fine if they are partially sighted, but if they're blind, then you need to use visually impaired because you're not partially sighted.
Wait, what? Run that by me again. So if they're blind, you use visually... Wait, hang on. I don't get it.
No. This person's saying don't use visually impaired. They want to be called partially sighted.
Right.
But to me, that's the same thing. But you can't call blind people partially sighted. I mean, blind people visually impaired, for God's sake.
No, I get it.
They're saying don't use visually impaired at all, but then use partially sighted. But then what do you call the proper blindies?
But
You keep using this phrase.
Yeah.
I love it. I hope we're going to come to a great summary on this. I can feel it.
But I get it. But this whole like having different terms for different spectrums, even though like you said, Cleaves, like why do we have to like educate these people in this sense? Like why can't they just accept it? Like I get that, but you know what? The world ain't fucking accepting it. Sometimes you got to meet halfway,
Right on the borderline.
And I would say, visually impaired is a term. So yeah, partially sighted, I have partial sight. But visually impaired is just another way of saying the same thing. You have less sight than a full-sighted person. So I think the fact that you're splitting hairs on terminology, this is why the general public, non-disabled individual, gets so confused and annoyed with how much terminology is out there. You need to be clear with this. Because if you're not going to be, why don't we just adopt the B1, B2, B3 like standards? Like, why don't we just do that and have that as a representation of visual impairment? Because it would be easier and quicker to say. Like,
I'm thinking that guide dogs need to rebrand because they're guide dogs for the blind. Oh, they need to drop the for the blind because you don't have to be blind to have a guide dog.
Yeah, that's true. I'm an example of that.
But you just said you're blind.
I was registered blind, and then they changed the rules.
Would you say you're partly blind because you're blind in one eye?
I would say that, yes. Because my right eye does not work.
Selina, is that okay with you?
Okay, now you've explained it. You know, before I used to be really against it because I thought that sounded stupid, but you've made fair points, so I'm going to hold my hands up to that one. Okay, I'll let you have it.
Yes. Thanks. Okay, should we move on to the next one? We've got a few to go through.
This one is from Lillington. Articles that imply that because someone is doing an amazing thing, we should all be doing it. Just because, and by that logic, they were saying that, you know, all abled people should be running a marathon like every other week.
I don't know. I've never seen this suggested in the media myself. I don't really know where they're coming from, to be honest.
What they were driving at is essentially, a lot of the articles that you see in the media are disabled person does crazy feat. They climb Everest, or they, I don't know, run a 50k, or I don't know, they swim the Channel 5 times. And because of that, this is what all disabled people should be doing despite their disability. And they're saying, well, if disabled people should be doing that all the time, then able people should be flying rockets and jumping from space every other week. And
on this, I have been asked by someone, a random person, who just sparked a conversation with me, as they do when you have a guide dog. They have asked me if I'm a Paralympian. It's like, no, I'm not. There was this sort of expectation that I was some elite athlete, and it's like, I'm not.
Maybe that was down to your physique.
What? Like
archery.
Wow. Jesus.
Have you tried archery?
I was going to try it at one point, but shut the fuck up. Anyway, Selina, you're an elite athlete.
Yeah, so when people ask me, are you a Paralympian? It's like, no, but I do sport. So I don't help the cause, really. What was the first point on that?
Just the people.
The generalisation. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
actually, we should all be breaking down barriers, you know, disabled or not. There's nothing wrong with that. We should all have aspirations and try and aim high and not just sit on our bums doing nothing. It's fine. We're lazy. We live in a lazy society.
Okay. Were you specifically talking about the disabled being lazy, or
everyone?
Oh, right. Okay. The society is being lazy. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you know what then? Moving on from that, and it kind of is not necessarily the next point, but moving on, a lot of people that were part of this thread have said the word inspiring. We hate when people call us inspiring for doing general things. Now, I'm in the mindset of you don't have to be doing 90k marathons every week. Sometimes you can just be holding down a regular job. Doesn't make you inspiring. The 90k person is inspiring. But similar with able-bodied people, if you're like a 5-time Olympic champion, you might be inspiring. If you're holding down a job at your local supermarket, you're getting life done. But is that inspiring? Probably not. If you're disabled, holding down that same job isn't inspiring. It's just, you got a life. Well done.
I think it comes down to the actual term, inspiring, to inspire a person. And if what you're being told you're inspiring for is not inspirational, then you need to like stop with that shit. Like, just because if you're working as a disabled person, so oh, you're so inspiring. It's like, what, inspiring other people to work?
The inspiration is down to the inspiree, is it not?
Yeah, but
if you're inspired by someone, maybe, that's not the inspiring person's issue, is it? Because they're just getting on and doing their thing.
I mean, I hate the word inspiration anyway. I think it's, in context, it can be really effective, especially with things like the Lionesses and their win last year. Amazing. And they inspired a lot of young girls and women to take up football. And I think that's true inspiration, because it's inciting action from people who may not have done that if not for that instance or those individuals.
It's also based on accolade for an underrepresented group in sport.
Exactly. But at the same time, I'm not inspiring for working as a vision impaired person.
Why? You're an underrepresented person that is working within the visually impaired community, which, as we well know,
yes,
more than 50%, probably more.
Yeah, I think it's around 80, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think it's like I thought it was 30% of people are in employment, but
either way, it's pretty damning figures.
But am I inspiring anyone? Like, if I went onto this same forum and said, I work, look how great I am, is that going to inspire anyone who isn't working?
Yes.
Or
with that archery physique?
Okay, Selina, come in. You're bursting at the seams here.
You're just moving away from your archery. No.
He's going to show us all up. Get a fucking gold medal in archery. Come back.
Yeah, I'll show you. Then I'll be inspiring.
And this is the thing, right? I'm not against the I word at all. And I think it's my parents, maybe like yesterday, I walked to my parents' house from my house. It takes me about an hour. It's 2.5 mile walk. And my mum says to me, like, I don't know how you do it. And, that's someone who's, she's got brothers that are blind. She's got, 2 blind children. And that's someone who's around it all the time, who you'd think wouldn't be inspired by that, because that's just everyday something. But actually, I appreciate it when my mum recognises how I've achieved that, because, to be quite honest, as a proper blind person, it's not easy going out my front door every day. Every day is a different challenge. You never know what you're going to come across. And it takes a lot. And it would be much easier just to stay at home or wait for somebody to come and physically help me and take me out. So I think I'm a little bit inspiring. And, people see me walking around with my guide dog or whatever, doing whatever I do. I'm okay if they find me inspiring, because I think, especially someone losing their sight, it's taken me a lot of time and a lot of personal talking to myself to get to where I am and what I do.
I'm not knocking that in any way, Selina.
Here's the but.
Here's the but. What you're describing isn't what I would deem inspiration. I think it's amazing that people see that, and if they feel fulfillment, positive fulfillment, and they have awe from that, I think that's really good. And I think it's really important to demonstrate that to people. And they should, like, they get hard, like, things are fucking tough. And if they want to have that sort of like that aspect of it and take that in, I think there's nothing wrong with that. But to me, inspiration as a concept and the literal words is to inspire a person to emulate the behavior of another person.
And right. It does, but it does. I've got other visually impaired friends who are more independent than me and get about and do stuff. And I look up to them and think, if they're doing it, I need to do it and stop, just be in the house. So they are. Yeah. And I'd like to think other people look at me in that same way.
That is inspiration. But when a woman serving me in a shop says I'm inspiring because I have a conversation with her and say that she goes, oh, what do you do for a living? And I say, I work for my employer. And she goes, oh, you're so inspiring. It's like, what? Because I have a fucking job. You have a job. You're doing it now. Like, that's not inspiration.
Yes, but she's doing it with full vision and you're doing it with not full vision.
Yeah, but the jobs are different. I chose a job that didn't require full vision.
No, but that's why there's so many unemployed blind people out there, because they think that they can't do what you do.
Well, they can do anything. They just need to get off their arses. Ooh. I mean, to be fair, that has always been the... Just to interject very slightly, that has always been the seesaw mentality. We've just never been great at vocalizing it. We've always believed that blind people can and should be working. We know it's very hard. And if people have jobs and others find that inspiring, I don't have necessarily a problem with that. We've just never been good at saying it.
I agree. And what Selina described, I think is absolutely true. But when a fully able person said, I'm inspiring because I am getting on a bus. So, well, you're getting on a fucking bus. Why is this inspirational? I'm not inspiring you to get on the bus.
Your problem
you were not going to get on the bus until I showed up.
You're taking it the wrong way. You're taking it the wrong way.
Your thing is, though, it's fully abled people saying that you're inspiring as opposed to your peers, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I get that in context. Yeah, that makes sense. Why a fully abled person would be inspired by a disabled person doing stuff is sort of beyond me a little bit. But in a group of your peers, if all the blinds looked at you and thought that you were inspiring, then I don't see a problem with that.
No, but I mean, it's that they don't have to be directly blind. Like, it doesn't matter if they're sighted and they look at you and go, oh, you're inspiring. It might be inspiring them to do something else in their life. They might have different struggles, but they've looked at you and seen that you're doing this, so this means I should be able to do this. If this blind person can get on a bus, why can't I fly a plane? I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know what the point is.
I can see to your point. I agree. In that context, I will agree.
Annoyingly, I think she might be right.
Yeah, but I also don't want to be an inspiration.
Tough.
Is that your own complex?
Yeah, I don't.
But again, I think this is because the show initially always had the mentality of
we don't
need to be inspiring. We should all be doing this as standard.
Yeah.
So, before we finish off, are there any other terms that we find in the media that I know some of this wasn't necessarily media based, but is there anything that anyone has picked up on in the media, how disability, visual impairment is portrayed?
There's one left on this list here from Shelf Stacker 94,000 that says disease. We prefer syndrome or condition.
That just depends what you've got, though, what it comes under. Mine, Nori disease, because that's what it is. They all mean different things. They've got no point there. They just don't know what they're on about.
Yeah.
Okay,
no, I agree, because mine is a genetic condition. It hasn't been described as a disease. It's a condition. Going back to my original point, Selina, is there anything that comes up in the media that really gets your goat?
No, it doesn't. Nothing really. I'm not really easily offended by any of this stuff. It's just like, I know some people get a bit touchy that if you're called a blind person, they want to be a person who is blind, or are you a disabled person or you're a person with a disability? That one people get a bit grumpy about, because they're not defined by their disability.
I'm not either, but if someone called me disabled, I think that's a fair comment.
But like blind person, I guess it's saying we're blind to everything. We've got no, but both meanings of the word of being blind. Like,
I think you're giving people too much credit on being smart enough to get that, Selina, to be honest.
No, but I think that's why people get touchy about it, because they're not blind to everything. That's just their eyes are blind.
No, I get it, but I think that's such a minority of people who would think that way, and general society, I think, aren't smart enough to make that comparison in a lot of cases. I think that people don't think that way. I think they literally see what's in front of their nose, and if you describe someone as being blind, they instantly associate it with vision, not necessarily that person is 10.
You've got a blind dog, haven't you?
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Get that
one's a
lot.
classic.
Yeah.
But also, people use the phrase "they're blind to it," as in they miss it. So I don't see that as a problem with the phrase either.
I don't. I did actually see it as here's kind of an extra quick blind news. Some
You just
people
don't get it, do you?
Some people are annoyed about statements such as a blind study.
Why?
Well, because people have more time on their hands than they should be working.
Oh my God. Here's a fun fact about clinical trials. They only recognise men and women as genders. Fucking eat that. Next up.
And on that controversial note.
It's not controversial. It's fucking true. To summarise, should we be really caring this much about the language that the media uses, or should we just get on with it and not really give a shit?
We're the kind of people that can get on with it. But as we know, there are a lot of sensitive souls out there. And the media is very influential. I think that you've got to draw a line somewhere and tell them when they're being outrageously rude and not politically correct. But sometimes we just need to take on the chin and be like, okay, cringe, but let's move on.
Like with media, you always appeal to the lowest common denominator.
The people that shout loudest on social media.
Well, sometimes. But when you are like a media outlet, you have to present content for every demographic. And it is hard to do. So I think if they're using basic stuff, then that's fine. If they're doing stuff that people understand for like the accessibility of language reasons, I think that's fine.
Happy with that too?
Yeah, I'm fine. Everyone
Your
has...
point was sort of similar, to be fair.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Frankly, I'm not going to lose sleep about a lot of this stuff.
And seeing as you both ask, nah, fuck them, grow thicker skin.
Okay. That's absolutely fair, and I expected that from you. I absolutely did. And we've touched on this in previous episodes, and I kind of agree with you. I think this isn't just about disability, is it? It's about.
See, mine was a one quote to end, mate. This wasn't a jump off point.
Okay. Well, I will end us off now then, and we'll cut this rambly shit out, can't I? Jesus Christ. Okay, what is it today? Just punch T in the balls day again. Let's round this out. So, in summary, you can do what you want. If you want to get upset about this, that's your right to do. And like, there are some legitimate qualms with a lot of this. But at the risk of dragging this out,
too late.
What we're going to do is we'll end it here. Let us know if you have any other terms that you don't like at the links coming up. So until next time.
Goodbye. But not from Selina, apparently.
Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you for listening to Seesaw Podcast. Your feedback and comments mean a lot to us, so if you'd like to get in touch, you can do so in the following ways.
You can find us on Twitter at Seesaw Pod, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube at Seesaw Podcast, and you can also join us at seesawpodcast.com. Remember to like, rate, review us and share us with a friend. This podcast was recorded in front of a blind audience.